Most B2B SaaS startups tend to drown in vanity metrics like social media likes and email open rates when they're missing the core metrics that actually predict revenue growth for their startup. So in this video, I'm going to show you the exact trended funnel dashboard I use with clients to track the right metrics so that you can actually move the needle forward with your startup. This dashboard that I'm talking about is something I've set up for many clients before and still continue to do so that they can actually understand how performance looks across the year. Many of clients have actually used this to pinpoint where they're spending a lot more money than they need to, where they need to essentially scale down budgets, but also where they can scale up so that they can influence pipeline generation down the funnel. This has actually helped a couple of the clients, and there's been clients that have seen 2 to 3x more qualified opportunities after just simply looking at the initial dashboard once they initially set things up and found immediate opportunities. So a lot of startups tend to track vanity metrics over revenue driving metrics through no fault of their own, simply because they're probably doing a bit of research, they don't know how to start off with marketing, and if they do, they've probably heard about a particular tactic that's been working for other businesses, but in the end when they try that and certain metrics look good to them from a vanity standpoint, they might over-index on those vanity metrics opposed to sticking with assessing the performance of a particular tactic or campaign, etc., against the key metrics that actually move the needle for the business. So that's more important versus going after the vanity metrics, and I think over-indexing is one of the biggest issues that any startup can run into, which is why you should be tracking these particular metrics. Hey, for those of you who are new, I'm Neil. I'm a former IT consultant who turned growth marketing consultant, and this technical background had actually taught me how to think of marketing in a more systematic infrastructural type of way, so that you're not just focused on like the random metrics, but you actually are taking things more systematically into building out a marketing infrastructure so that foundations that you lay out are able to ensure or increase the chances of success of the marketing tactics you're going to deploy as part of your marketing strategy. So there's a lot of SaaS startup founders that tend to collect random marketing metrics without actually building the right measurement infrastructure behind the scenes, right, or from the get-go. And that's all to understand what's actually driving pipeline, what's actually driving revenue. And the problem isn't tracking too little, but sometimes you can always track too much. And that actually influences the behavior of over-indexing and optimizing for the wrong metric. Because, for example, tracking the wrong things and then optimizing those things too early before you have any statistical significance puts you at risk of burning loads of marketing budget, burning loads of dollars, and not really understanding what you're actually doing. So what I've done is I've built a trended funnel dashboard, which I'm going to show you right now. So before we go into the dashboard, for those aspiring marketers or those marketers at startups, you can download my trended funnel dashboard template and learn the systematic measurement approach that separates strategic marketers from those who are tactical executors. And for those SaaS startup founders, you can get the dashboard template so that you can start to build out your measurement infrastructure. And you can also join a waitlist for an upcoming marketing infrastructure workshop for technical founders that I'm going to be putting on. So this is the trended funnel dashboard, which includes some of the core funnel metrics that you want to be tracking and what actually you want to be tracking first, especially at the beginning of your startup stages and when you're in that early stage growth phase, testing out different channels or trying to understand where most of your site visitors are coming from, leads, trials, demos, ops, and wins, right? So the site visitors is your first metric, and what you generally want to do is you want to look at your top of funnel awareness, essentially how much people or how many people you're bringing to your website, which is your central hub of awareness, or on your business, your product, your software, or whatever content that you're pushing out there. This sort of tells you what people are coming to your site, where you know the next conversion action is going to happen, which is likely going to be your, let's say if it's a downloadable asset, become a lead straight away, or become a lead in the form of starting a trial if you're offering free trials, but also a demo if you're like getting people to contact sales to book a demo or have a conversation with sales too. So leads is actually the people who have shown interest. It's not contacts only, it's not cold contacts, these are leads, so people who have shown some interest in your brand, a piece of content that you have on your website, like a downloadable asset, and they're looking to learn a bit more about the topic on offer, right? So something where they're a bit more interested or more invested in actually learning a bit more about your product, what the solution is, how you can help them solve their problem in the first place. Trials is actually dependent on your business. So if you're a mid-market to enterprise focused business, you might have a free trial or a freemium offer, but you might also have the primary conversion action, which is your to try to get to book a demo. So that's why you might want to individually track these as well, which is why they're here. As you can imagine, the trial is more of the low conversion action. So again, the trials is more like the product engagement signal, and then you've got the demos and meetings which focus on your sales qualified action, right? So these are to try and get them in touch with sales for sales to qualify them further into whether they're going to become an opportunity or not. And by the way, there's a blend here for trials and demos. It's nice to have. You might want to track them together or individually, but it's also good to look at as a blended metric too, simply because you're able to track whether your trials and demos have increased and in what breakdown over the certain number of months once you've started running your campaigns. And you can sort of start to pinpoint where more trial followers might be coming from over a particular month because you're running X, Y, and Z, or where more demos were coming from instead. So demos are your sales qualified actions, and your opportunities, well, that speaks for themselves. It's more about the qualified pipeline. So how many opportunities did you generate in that month too, right? And by the way, the relationship here, which we'll talk about later, isn't just going to be month to month, right? It spans over break this down like this. But as you can imagine, this dashboard helps you look at things quarterly, in half yearly, and also as a full year. Now, the final one is wins, which is obviously the most important, which is closed revenue. So where did you get most of your closed revenue? How many deals did you close? That's one of the most important metrics to track. So these metrics actually show you the entire customer journey, and they're not just isolated and treated like a vanity metric. So we're not just getting happy about generating like 1,000 leads, but then realizing that there was no trials and demos at the back end of that. There was no opportunities eventually as per your sales cycles. By the way, for those aspiring marketers or those marketers at startups, the dashboard template would actually teach you that professional level of measurement infrastructure and how to get that in place. And it's better for some of those more strategic roles, right? Opposed to just being hands-on and measuring things at a more tactical execution level. And for the SaaS founders, you can actually use this template to build your tracking foundation and join a waitlist if you're interested for a marketing infrastructure workshop I'm thinking about holding to show SaaS founders the complete systematic approach I use to building out their marketing infrastructure. Right, so this is actually the key metrics that you're going to be using on your initial dashboard, and this should get you going in the early months, right? But at one point, you kind of want to improve and become more sophisticated in your tracking so that you can get more out of it. So that's where the critical conversion rate data comes in. So that's where the real insights are. That's where you want to glean the real insights from your data. So what we can do is if I expand all of these areas, okay, these percentages are the actual conversion rates at each part of the funnel. You're able to understand what percentage of the relevant traffic that you're driving to your website or that you're organically getting through to your website, how healthy is that traffic? Are they the right audience? That tells you, are you getting more demos as you're getting more impressions and driving more traffic? As for the percentage of leads to demos or leads to meetings, generally this is more like the lead quality indicator. So for a key conversion action like book a demo or contact sales, if you look at that conversion rate across the series of months, you'll be able to tell how healthy your lead to demo conversion rate is, right? So how healthy your lead quality is, because this will determine whether you're generating the right kind of leads or if you're just generating contacts and filling up your CRM with a lot of other contacts that you can do nothing with. The next is the percentage of demos and meetings to opportunities. So this is the sales qualification effectiveness. So for every meeting that you've had in that given month, for example, how many have converted to opportunities? And this gives you an indication of how healthy your sales qualification effectiveness is in the framework that you use, the process that you use, and the way you go about it. And one tip here is for those with longer sales cycles, that something like opportunities and wins are going to be more of lagging effects based off of your sales cycle. When someone books a demo today, they're not going to be closing today. That's just not how it works in B2B SaaS markets. This is precisely why this trended funnel is very simple to look at and gives you the holistic view over the entire year. And the last is that wins as of a percentage of the leads that are generated, and this is your end-to-end conversion efficiency, so you can understand exactly the leads and the people that you're trying to convert or bringing into the funnel, where you actually had the best quality coming in. So the key point to what you want to know is where things are happening, so where things are breaking, where things are actually doing well. But this is exactly how you start to identify infrastructural issues versus just tactical issues that you might be dealing with on a day-to-day basis. You can see that I've included some data, and it's actually anonymized data from a client project in the past. But what we want to look at is you can actually understand how conversion rate trends look over time, right? Things can get a bit tricky in B2B SaaS with the longer average sales cycles, and you can pick this up in trends. I remember for this client, there was a very clear indicator of when they would generate more opportunities versus when they would close more deals to be expected, and when they would generate more leads. So points where we generate all the leads, for example, but there'll be a less amount of bookings throughout certain parts of the year, like that June, July, where we found out that not many deals were closed or anything like that, but not many demos were being booked as much either, because people were either away for the summer holidays. So you can see that you get like a high amount of leads to meetings at a certain at a certain time, and then it starts to drop off towards the end of the year. Well, in B2B SaaS, you'll notice that people have different sales cycles, which is why also, although you're using this dashboard, you can look at things from a trended sense at a monthly level, but sometimes it won't always make sense. These things change over time. So for example, this is where you want to look at things as a quarter. If you know that you have 90-day cycles for people to progress to a demo, generally when someone becomes a lead on average, let's say, or if they go into opportunity stage 90 days after they had their first engagement as a lead, right? So you can pick up on these trends, and you'll notice that, okay, if on this month I noticed that we got 10 opportunities, all of a sudden we've got 11 here. What is it about those months that drove things? For example, this section here was where we started events again, namely these areas here, right? Which is where things started to pick up. So there was a lot more, for example, demos booked at that time because they came off the back end of a trade show. Most of those connections we found that had an opportunity or had booked a demo at the early part of the year, when we drill down into the data using the CRM to see what wins were there and where they came from, who was involved in it. Trade shows were a great area for them to interact with us, to reconnect with us and move the conversation forward, and then move the deal forward from there, right? So that's a key learning point. So from that, what we can conclude is that we can be available at some of those events, and we were at the right events in the first place, connecting with the right people. So it's likely that we would book to go to that or attend that event again next year, so long we can make the most use out of the interactions. So when do you add the advanced metrics from here, right? Some of the vanity metrics I want to talk about that you want to avoid early on are like your social media likes on isolation, your shares, your impressions, like looking at page views without any conversion context. How did they get to the page? So what did you say, or what did you offer them in order for them to get to the page? You need to understand all of this with conversion context. And another one that's key is email open rates and like click rates without any conversion data. People tend to go and look at, let's say as part of their outreach program, look at open rates and click rates. Although they're indicators, which by the way, they're weaker indicators these days because a lot of bots tend to open your emails to check if things are malicious or not, or if everything's safe for the user. Same with clicks. All those things aren't as effective as they used to be. Therefore, it's important to know that what you want to be tracking for something like that is, instead of open rates and click rates, the conversion data for that sort of campaign would be your reply rates, or going a step further and looking at your positive reply rates and your negative reply rates, right? What do they respond positively to? So what template, what message, what did you say to them, what type of ICP were they? Also, how many demos booked did you get? And the other vanity metrics to avoid early on is CPL, when you don't have enough statistically significant data and you haven't spent enough, and also CPA when you haven't actually waited through a long enough sales cycle. Don't track CPL from the beginning straight away, because you're not measuring it against something else that's equally seen as something that's performing. What you want to do is you want to track CPL eventually for something that's like okay, we've got two performing mediums. The only difference is we need to understand what we can scale up or down based off of its cost factor as well, right? So how you want to, where are we getting the cheapest lead, but the most relevant lead? That's the way you want to ask that question. Where's the most relevant leads coming from first? Then you ask, oh, is it cheaper to do it from another medium or platform that you're marketing on, like we've seen here, these tactical mediums? Is it coming from an area we're spending more on, like LinkedIn or Facebook? Or is it coming from a Google or a TikTok, right? Or is it coming from our PR initiatives, right? This is the way to sort of start tallying up the cost data, but you want to make sure that you've spent enough and you've gone through enough days of those campaigns running, because you need enough data to make that conclusion. And with CPA, you want to make sure you sort of stay live for this full sales cycle. Key point to keep in mind for this as well is that these cost metrics, if you optimize too early, you can potentially kill your good channels. So for example, if you find out that LinkedIn was generating leads and then you decided to say, okay, but we only got one lead from Facebook, and you kill that, well, if you get one qualified lead from Facebook and you kill that, you kind of need to like look at the picture a little bit more broadly, right? It depends how much you've spent, depends how much time you've given it. If this was running for one day and this was running for 30 days, that's not really fair, is it? You can't say one's not working. So you need to do these tests intentionally, and you need to make sure that you're not optimizing too early as well, because it can kill your potentially good channels. And that's why looking at data in isolation only for a single period is bad practice. All right, so I kind of want to go quick implementation tips. So first, let's go over the review feed. How often do you actually review this dashboard? You can actually review it, I would suggest, monthly for tactical insights essentially, and then you want to look at quarterly for your initial trends, and then yearly for your strategic planning, right? So strategic planning includes budgets, it includes operational tactics you want to deploy. Quarter to quarter could be those trends of how things are trending with performance of what you've deployed and whether you need to make any tweaks. And then month to month is simply keeping track of how those tactics are performing on a month-to-month basis, right? Are we generating the right leads, right? Are we getting the right traffic to the website? Have we dipped off? And then you actually dive into what you've spent in those months and then optimize accordingly. Drill into your CRM data, look at if they're not converting to meetings, what leads have you generated? Are they interested enough? What type of content did you show them on what platform? What did you ask them to do? Do they understand enough before they've even booked a meeting, right? That's some of the things that you can look at on the monthly basis. But those three is typically what I'd get you to look at. So how do you implement this with a specific tool or tech stack? Well, you only need Google Sheets, right? This is on Google Sheets. So once you do download this asset, you'll get an email, a link directly to this template, so you can make a copy of it and start to mess with it straight away. And as for a CRM, I would also recommend that, right? Try to use a CRM. So you want to use this data first and then go into a CRM to look at things. And when you go into something like HubSpot, which I also recommend, albeit kind of expensive, but it's still robust in helping you track the right things, look at things like your pipeline generated, your revenue closed for those particular months, how it looks over a certain number of quarters, or even how it looks for, like, let's say last year compared to this year, looking at potential leads that you've generated, what deals have gone through and what contacts were associated with it. You can get a lot of insights from that once you've started to drill down in a particular month where you wanted to look at what's come through and how things are performing. And what are some common mistakes to avoid? So the first is optimizing before that statistically significant data set that you've accumulated over time. So that's how much, making sure that you've spent at least a decent amount so that you can understand, hey, this definitely does not work or this does work. You want to look at these metrics holistically first and then go and look at them individually. So you want to go top down, and this is almost like a health dashboard, right? As you can imagine, this helps you look at the data and then drill into what's performing and what's not performing. And the other is, of course, switching off your campaigns. Don't do that before they reach their full sales cycle. Try not to do that, within reason, of course, right? Don't just start to spend loads and loads of money on your campaigns or resources on campaigns when you know it's clearly not working. There is such a thing of understanding things with a gut feeling as well, especially if you're familiar with the practice or the campaigns that you're running. The last is actually not tracking conversion rates, just the raw numbers. Just remember that if you look at it with the conversion rates, you'll understand the health of your funnel and pipeline. and all the experiments and activity that you're running at that particular time period that you're looking at. For those aspiring marketers or marketers at startups, you can download the trended funnel dashboard template to master that strategic measurement element. This systematic approach is something clients actually pay thousands for because of the amount of money it saves them and the amount of resources it saves them. SaaS founders, get the template for your startup's measurement infrastructure and join the waitlist if you're interested in being part of my marketing infrastructure workshop for technical founders, where I show you how to set up the proper marketing infrastructure that increases your chances of your experiments, your campaigns. If you're running growth marketing experiments, or you would like to in the future to enable more growth, I recommend watching this video where I show you exactly how to easily set up a growth marketing experiments dashboard so you can better prioritize those growth marketing experiments and promote them or demote them based on their performance into your marketing infrastructure. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Take it easy and see you soon.